afternoon. It's a day where gas costs a lot in Washington state, and some people who earn a lot are suing about taxes. From the KUOW newsroom, this is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with a roundup of today's top stories. It's Thursday, April 9th. They promised a lawsuit, and it's here today. A new lawsuit's been filed challenging Washington's new income tax on high earners, a.k.a. the millionaire's tax. State government reporter Sarah Mises-Tan has more.
The lawsuit says the income tax is unconstitutional, based off a nearly 100-year-old ruling that designates all income as property. The Citizens Action Defense Fund, a conservative watchdog group, is leading the lawsuit. They say because the law doesn't tax all incomes uniformly, it goes against the state constitution. Former Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna is the group's attorney.
Washington state can have an income tax if it follows the rules for property taxes. It has to be uniform and no higher than 1%.
The lawsuit was filed with the Klickitat County Superior Court on Thursday. The lead plaintiffs are a builder and the owner of a marketing business who would be subject to the tax. The Superior Court is expected to uphold the unconstitutionality of the tax, but all eyes will be on the case as it moves to the state Supreme Court, which would issue the ultimate ruling. In Olympia, I'm Sarah Mises-Tan.
And here's an interesting tidbit coming out today. Washington state will hire 300 new employees to implement the millionaire's tax. The Seattle Times reports the Department of Revenue plans to bulk up staff by the year 2030. Staffing and infrastructure work will move ahead regardless of lawsuits. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson has announced an update on a big campaign promise of hers. Scott Greenstone has more.
At City Hall Wednesday night, Wilson repeated her promise to set up 1,000 homeless shelter beds this year, half of those before the World Cup.
What I repeatedly hear from business leaders, service providers, community activists, and people living outside is that we can't just keep moving people from place to place and calling that progress.
Wilson is still removing homeless encampments like her predecessor, however. She announced a new site in Interbay that will provide shelter for 75 people. The city is contracting with an Everett-based company that builds micro-shelters, fiberglass reinforced plastic walls hung on aluminum frames that can be quickly set up and reused. Wilson's administration doesn't yet have an opening date. A spokesperson said a couple months. The first World Cup match in Seattle is June 15th. Scott Greenstone, KUOW News.
In immigration news, Washington state officials say they are still being blocked from entering and inspecting the Northwest ICE Detention Center in Tacoma. That is despite a federal appeals court ruling last summer that confirmed the state has the right to enter. Detention operator GEO Group turned state health officials away as recently as March 20th, the 9th denial in 3 years. Federal immigration officials did not immediately respond to reporter requests for comment. A plea is now on the books by a current public official. King County Assessor John Wilson pleaded not guilty this week to 2 counts of violating a court order. Wilson had been accused of stalking a former girlfriend. He was arrested outside her home last summer while he was under a temporary protection order. Wilson's term as King County Assessor ends this year, and he has said he will not run for re-election. Pivoting here to news today, marking a major moment for Washington state's toxic past. At the Hanford cleanup site in southeast Washington, the very first containers of radioactive waste were disposed of this week. They're going to a specialized landfill. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Anna King has more.
The sandy dump at Hanford makes large equipment and trucks look like Tonka toys. It's 45 feet deep, and it spans more than 5 football fields across. The waste being disposed of here has been stewing away in aging underground tanks at Hanford, not far from the Columbia River. That waste has now been bound up in glass in a massive new factory that employs 3,000 people and state-of-the-art technology. Binding up the waste in glass keeps it from leaking toward the Columbia River. I'm Anna King.
A quick check of the gas pump prices. It's only getting more expensive for people who buy fuel. Diesel's at an all-time high in Washington, $6.94. Regular gasoline is now $5.40 statewide. is the soft launch of film festival season every year, and boy, do we have some updates. Organizers of the Seattle Queer Film Festival and Transgender Film Festival Translations have put both events on hold. The festivals were combined last year as the arts organization $3 Bill Cinema grappled with debt. Now, Cinema Board President Lindy Bousted told the Seattle Times it's not clear when the festivals might return. And it's just one more blow to Seattle's cinema scene. The Seattle International Film Festival laid off 3 staffers in January, and multiple indie theaters have closed in recent years. But here's some good news. A new 3-day film festival that features stories about Mexico City's punk scene starts today. It's being held at the Egyptian Theater in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. We get more from KNKX reporter Freddie Monarez.
Fin de Fest will screen 2 films each day. One highlights an underground punk venue in Mexico City in the 1980s. The other is from that same era and follows 3 members of an infamous punk gang called Los Panchitos. Danette Cortera is a founder of the festival.
I lived in Mexico City without cell phone, so my mom would be like, careful with the panchitos, and like careful when you're walking down the steps to the subway.
The event marks a temporary reopening of Seattle Central College's Egyptian Theater. It closed in 2024 after a pipe burst caused significant flood damage. The college is looking into using the theater for other events. In Seattle, I'm Freddie Monarez.
A few notes from the sports page. For nearly 20 seasons, Elise Woodward has called play-by-play for WNBA Storm games. She announced this week she's been hired by the brand new Portland Fire franchise. The Storm have already hired her replacement, Alyssa Charleston-Smith, a Fox 13 sports anchor and college basketball analyst. Seattle Kraken president Ron Francis will step down when the season ends next Thursday. Francis was the Kraken's first ever general manager, but mutually agreed to leave. The Kraken have only made the playoffs once and are almost certain to miss them again this season. And the Mariners are getting ready to honor one of the team's all-time greats. The M's will unveil a new statue honoring MLB Hall of Famer Ichiro Suzuki outside T-Mobile Park tomorrow. The team retired Ichiro's number 51 jersey last year. Next time on Seattle Now, it's Casual Friday. We'll talk about a 72-year-old personal trainer from Washington who survived an encounter with a crocodile. No one on our show would be so lucky.
I'm a restaurant critic. I am pudgy. I am so marshmallow soft that if a crocodile took a bite, the arm is gone.
Hear that and more tomorrow morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer's Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. See ya.